to go. All right, good evening, everyone. It's 7 p.m., October 9th, 2025, and I'd like to welcome everyone in the room and those participating online as I call to order this meeting of the Bellbrook-Sugarcreek Board of Education for the purpose of conducting the school district's business. We value everyone's input and have made sure to dedicate a portion of this meeting to hear from you. If you missed it, there's a sign-in sheet up there by the front door for anyone wishing to speak tonight, and we look forward to your comments during that time as it's indicated on our agenda. With that, Mr. Gautam, please call the roll.
Mrs. Anderson?
Here.
Mrs. Dawn?
Here.
Mr. Kinsey?
Present.
Mr. Price?
Here.
Dr. Pryor?
Present.
5 present.
All right, we have a quorum. If you're able, will you please stand and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag
United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. All right, Mr. Gautam, tonight's treasurer's report.
My first item is approval of minutes for September 11, 2025.
Move. Second.
Mrs. Dorn, then Mrs. Anderson. Anybody have any questions or corrections? Please call roll.
Mrs. Anderson?
Yes.
Mrs. Dawn?
Yes.
Mr. Kinsey?
Yes.
Mr. Price?
Yes.
Dr. Pryor?
Yes.
5 yeses. My second item is approval of September's treasurer's report.
So moved. Second.
Mrs. Dorn, then Mrs. Anderson.
So 25% of the fiscal year is over at September 30th. If you look at our revenues, they are higher, and that's because we've got the property tax settlement. We're not going to get any property taxes until February now, so it will end up being about half by then. Also, other revenues are just online with where they should be. Expenditures are online, especially salaries. That's the big expenditure. So we're doing good.
Any questions? Please call the roll.
Mrs. Dawn?
Yes.
Mr. Kinsey?
Yes.
Mr. Price?
Yes.
Dr. Pryor?
Yes.
Mrs. Anderson?
Yes.
5 yeses. My next item is a request for approval of 5 then and now certificates.
So moved. Second.
Dr. Pryor and then Mrs. Anderson.
These are 5 vendors where we did not have a purchase order when the purchase was made, so we require board approval if it's over $3,000.
Any questions? I just want to say, I don't think in the past I've seen it broken out like this. I really like that, and I appreciate that with the totals here. So thank you for doing that.
We'll do that. Thank you.
No, thank you. Please call the roll.
Mr. Kinsey?
Yes.
Mr. Price?
Yes.
Dr. Pryor?
Yes.
Mrs. Anderson?
Yes.
Mrs. Dawn?
Yes.
5 yeses. My next item is request for approval of unclaimed funds to the general fund in the amount of $1,663.19.
So moved. Second.
Mrs. Anderson and then Dr. Pryor.
So this came from, during the state budget, state was allocating unclaimed funds to the construction of new Cleveland Brown Stadium. So I checked, hey, does Bellbrook-Sugarcreek schools have any unclaimed funds? And we found just over $1,600 in unclaimed funds. Requested them, got most of it, didn't get $25, but everything but $25 we got back. Audit of State came back and they said, hey, you have to post these funds to the fund where it should belong. The thing is, most of the money is from 11, 12. We have no clue where the funds belong. But Audit of State allows, if the board approves it, we can post it to the general fund and then we can use it for any district purpose.
So this is money. Explain this again, how this relates to the Cleveland Brown Stadium.
Yeah.
Okay, so basically what happens is any private entity, so bank, anyone we're transacting with, if they write a check to us, any of us, and we do not cash that check, by law they are required to send that check to the state of Ohio, Department of Commerce. So State of Ohio maintains a list on a database with our names and unclaimed funds. So we have to go online to their website and claim it, say, hey, yeah, I'm Bellbrook-Sugarcreek Schools, or I'm Amit Gautam, and that's me. Then I have to prove, like, okay, yeah, that's actually me.
Yeah.
It's a rigorous process. But 1663, I think it was worth it.
Free money.
Thank you for figuring that out.
Anywhere we can save money.
The Browns are using the funds that are not claimed for their new stadium.
So
So
we
that-
claimed it.
Oh,
So we claimed
we
it.
prevented this from going to the
Yeah,
Cleveland
$1,600, yes.
Browns. And I intend to vote in the affirmative for this one.
Go Bengals.
I don't know. I'm a Browns fan, so not really.
Mr. Price,
Yes.
Dr. Pryor,
Yes.
Mrs. Anderson,
Yes.
Mrs. Dawn,
Yes, and who day?
Mr. Kintridge.
Yes.
5 yeses. Okay, the next is approval of the forecast for October 2025.
So moved.
Second?
Mrs. Dorn, seconded by Mrs. Anderson.
I have hopefully a short presentation.
All right.
F5.
Slideshow, top middle.
F5. Okay. Thank you. So this is the financial forecast. I call it financial forecast, not a 5-year forecast. I'll explain in a minute. So this forecast has been prepared in accordance with Ohio Revised Code Section 5705.391 as amended by the last biennial budget for state of Ohio. And the main differences are this used to be a November forecast. We always did it end of November. Now it's an August 31st forecast. It has to be done by August 31st. For this year, the legislature made an exception because the budget was passed in June. There's no way we could have done it by August 31st. So this is October 15th. Going next year, it will be August 31st. The second update is due and the last day of February, so 28th or 29th. It used to be the May forecast. So that's the changes. The fiscal year 2026, this used to be a projection. So we said this is how much we expect. Now 26 is actually a budget. It's the budget that was approved by the Board of Education. And then the estimated receipts are from Greene County, Ohio. Greene County approves our estimated receipts, and based on that is our fund balance. So it's the budget for 26, and then there's 3 years of projections. So there is no 2030. What I'm presenting will have 2030 to help the board but what I have to submit to the Ohio Department of Education will not have 2030 on it. So the last year is gone. So the main objectives of 5-year forecast is to engage the board and our community in long-range budget planning. And the biggest thing is levies. When do we need levies? When is our fund balance is going to be low enough that maybe we need to consider levy. Also 412 certificate. So by law, we are required to issue a 412 certificate if anytime we have any big contract. Might be union contracts, might be something for construction. We have to issue 412. If our 5-year forecast doesn't show the money's there, we cannot sign a 412 certificate. So that's one requirement. It serves as a foundation for next year's budget. And Department of Education and Audit of State of Ohio use the 5-year forecast as a basis of monitoring our finances. So if they see something like in the third year they see deficits or something, they might come in and maybe ask us to fix it, or they can take over. This slide has the revenues, all the revenues that's presented on the 5-year forecast. One thing to note is the property tax is new. So this is not part of the revenues. Our levy, our emergency levy will expire on December 31st, 2028. So half year of fiscal year 29, because our fiscal year is from July 1, 28 through June 30, 29, and full year of fiscal year 30 will not have emergency levy proceeds. So, and the state of Ohio changed the law, so we cannot renew our emergency levy. So that's why 13.03 has a new levy. So if we have to go, we'll have to go for new money. The new money is about the same, 3.5 mils, which brings about the same money as fixed sum levy. But it's hard to get because it's fixed sum 3.2 mils. It's hard to bring 3.2 mils with a fixed rate levy because it's like, you know, trying to shoot something that's moving. It's hard to do. The current year revenues, if you look, our biggest revenue source is property taxes from our taxpayers. And then the second biggest source is state funding, which is a state foundation and any other support they give us. Our biggest source, the general property tax, if we look at historically, in 2021, our emergency levy was passed. So 23 was the first year that the levy had full year collection. So there was extra 3.2. That's why we see a raise. 23 was reappraisal year. So 25 would be the first year we got the full reappraisal levy. But I think the increase is higher. It's we got $1 million in delinquent property taxes. So it's not because of reappraisal. It's not because, you know, the values were higher, so we got more money. We had a big delinquency that we got last year. Now 26 would be the next reappraisal. I'm assuming 10% increase in property values. And if you look difference between 26 and 28, that's when the full reappraisal will be. It's not a 10% increase in property taxes for us. That's how Ohio taxes work. We do not get a dollar for dollar because we are over the 20 mil flow. So we don't get dollar for dollar. So our increase is much smaller than a 10% increase in property values we expect. 28, our levy expires, as I mentioned. So in 29 and 30, you see the top property taxes going down because we don't have the 3.2 mil levy coming in. This is an unrestricted grant in aid. This is the state funding we get. Basically, it's flat. We got a small bump this year, and that's because we are getting, for being a 5-star district, we're getting money for that. And my assumption is we'll get the money for next 4 years. We'll be 5-star. Another assumption is 26, 27, the state budget has the money. I'm assuming in 28, 29, and 30 also the state budget will budget for high-performing school districts. And we also got some small increase on our base cost. So that's the only reason. This slide shows our state funding, which is basically flat, about $4,000 per student, and our actual cost per student. This year we're expecting about $14,553 per student. That's how much it will cost to educate a student. And we are only getting $4,000 back. Everything else is paid for by our property taxpayers. So you're paying for it. And it will increase to about $17,000 by 2030, but we're still getting only $4,000 from the state of Ohio. So our local share is going up. And that's why, you know, when we talk about new levies, that's the reason why we have to, because state isn't increasing their share. They're giving us the same money, but our cost is going up. And another factor is the projected enrollment. It's basically flat. That's how it's always been. It's about 2578 this year, and by 2030, I'm only expecting it to go up by 2085, so not much difference, about 17 extra kids. And that's why the state funding is flat also. Also, we're on a guarantee district, so unless we have more than 2,900 kids, we will not see extra money because our funding went up. These are our expenditures, and I'll go over them in a second. So our biggest source of expenditures is personnel costs. That's salaries and fringe benefits. And the second biggest is purchase services, which could be electricity, our contracts for Greene County ESC for services. That's included in purchase services. Everything else is only 8%, and that includes buying equipment and any other. So our personnel services is going up consistently. We have a union agreement until 2027. We have 2% raises until 27, and then we have step increases. So I'm assuming about 4% increase every year, and I'm assuming the same for the years after 2027. So personnel cost salaries will go up every year about 4%, and they were about $20 million in 2025, and they'll be about $24.5 million in 2030, just by 4% increase every year. Our employee benefits see a larger increase, and that's because of health insurance costs. We just got something from our insurance provider, and next year, 26, which would be half year of fiscal year 26, our insurance costs will go up by 9% for next year, starting January. So I'm assuming we'll have a 9% increase in insurance costs every year. Everything else is tied with salary, so they increase about 4%. But because health insurance goes up so high, our fringe benefits are going really high. Purchase services see a big increase in 25 to 26, and that's because of our electricity costs. My home electricity costs will almost double, and I'm sure most of you have seen an increase in electricity costs. The district is seeing the same thing, and that's the big reason for increase in our purchase services. And then there'll be inflation for everything else. Oops, sorry, I forgot to change it. But here's the purchase services. This is our revenues compared to expenditures. So as we see, for last few years, our revenues exceeded the expenditures. Last year was an anomaly, and that's because we moved $6.5 million to our capital projects fund. So it wasn't really our expenditures were in excess of our revenues last year. We just moved $6.5 million to a separate fund because the state had a 40% cap at that time. So that's the only reason. Our revenues were more than the expenditures last year also. And this year we expect our revenues to exceed our expenditures. Next year they should be about the same. And after that we'll see deficit spending where our expenditures are in excess of our revenues. And here's the cash balances. So as you can see, we saw a dip last year, and that's because of the $6.5 million transfer. They go up just a bit this year and next year, and then it will see a big decline. Now these cash balances don't include any new levies, so it's based on, the levy has expired, and that's why you see a big dip in 29 and 30, because we don't get that $3.2 million a year in the emergency levy. So at this time, the blue line is what GFOA recommends, which is about 25% of expenditure. They say we should always have cash. That's 25%, which is about 90 days worth of cash. The yellow line is what our goal is, and our goal is 20% of our revenue. So that's the 20% of our revenue. And if you look at 2030, 29, 30, we are like getting below the GFOA level, and then 30 we are even below our own goal of 20% of revenues. So the key takeaways are our financial outlook remains stable for 28, 29, it will start going down. The legislative changes will have a big impact. There's a lot going in state legislature which can change how a 5-year forecast looks significantly. There's a lot going on in property taxes, which is a main source of revenue. So any negative impact on property taxes can have a negative impact on our 5-year forecast. And we have a continued focus on long-term sustainability and fiscal responsibility. Once the board approves the 5-year forecast, this will be submitted for ODE for their review and approval. Thank you for your time. Any questions?
I have a question. Can you go back to the slide with the big dip?
Oh, this one.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. So when it says 2030, does that mean the end of 2030, the beginning, fiscal year? I don't know.
It
when
means
is
end
that?
of 2030. So that's June 30th, 2030.
June 30th, 2030 is when we have like $3
Basically,
million.
Yeah, we don't have much cash
Okay.
left at that time.
Okay, thanks.
So you mentioned the legislative changes. We've seen some very recently and then some earlier a few weeks ago. is there still any movement afoot to limit, do a veto override that was going to limit how much we could carry over from year to year? Is there still any talk about that, or are they going to let it go until this current legislative 2-year cycle, or do you know?
They haven't talked about, they are looking at 2 more vetoes they want to override. One's with 20 mil flow. We are not on 20 mil flow, we are about 26 million. So that doesn't impact us, but will impact every school district in Greene County. The other one they are looking at overriding is County Budget Commission's authority to reduce the levies. They haven't talked about the cap as yet. And the Governor's Tax Commission, they came up with the idea of 100% carry. It should be about 100% should be the carryover, which is much better than having a 40%.
Yeah, there's still a lot of conversation, talk, and legislation for property taxes and those things that Mr.
Yeah,
Cotton was talking about. So I would say probably in the next month or so, we're going to see some movement on some things. And again, the legislature can, throughout the whole 2-year budget, biennium budget here, they can override any of those vetoes that Governor DeWine, they just have to do it when they're in session. So it could be over the next year and a half.
So it can go back to the previous session for up to?
No, not whatever's vetoed in this session, they can override anything throughout this whole session.
Okay.
Yeah, through this
They have
2-year
until
with the House.
December 31st, 2026 to override the vetoes.
Okay.
There's also a group still collecting signatures to try to put an issue on the ballot to make a change to, now someone correct me if I'm wrong, the Ohio State Constitution to completely eliminate property tax with no, at least not that I've seen, any sort of proposal as to what would replace that revenue stream. So that would obviously be catastrophic for every
Correct.
school district and city and
Yeah.
township. Probably more catastrophic for us than even other school districts, or
Yeah.
more quickly impactful, being that we don't have income tax, and we're one of few that don't. So,
Yeah, there's a lot of good information. There was a webinar a few weeks ago on property taxes and some things going on there, why we're at kind of where we're at. And really one of the pieces was it's really been a shift of more burden on local property taxes, tax owners rather, and away from businesses. So making Ohio more business friendly, giving a lot of tax breaks to businesses, and that shift has gone from the businesses onto the homeowner. And so that's why the homeowner is feeling a lot more of the pinch here, because that burden is shifting from individual house owners to that. And so if there's any kind of property tax do away with, and so I think the number was $24 billion are being collected through property taxes, and $8 billion of that is through businesses. And so if there's a shift away from that, then the local property tax, individual homeowners are going to take on the burden of the businesses. And so that's going to be a tax increase, or some way you got to find the money somewhere in order for cities, townships, MRDD boards, school districts, everybody that relies on levies to figure out what we're going to do. So.
I think the scariest part, as I've thought through it, and Amit, you probably can educate us on this if it starts looking like there's more potential for this, but I think that effort is trying to put that on the ballot. That's a year from now, a year from this November.
Yeah.
If that were to happen, that would mean that no property tax was collected beginning in calendar year of '27.
Yes.
So even if districts and everywhere tried to shift to an income tax revenue stream, by the time that got on a ballot, it got approved, and then people worked for a whole year, and then that tax got collected, there would be a giant period of time in order for us to shift to that. Even if we were able to pass such a levy, would be a super long amount of time before we could get any money from that. Is
Yeah.
that
Yeah,
track?
there will be a gap. Because if it passes in November, we can't pass income taxes in November, it's the next year. And by the time collection starts, we have 1 year. And we don't have 1 year's worth of cash on our hands.
Right.
So that would be, another thing is that there'll be legal challenges even if it passes because like we have a bond levy where the taxpayers of Bellbrook-Sugarcreek approved a bond to construct the middle school and renovate all the other buildings. So it's, our tax dollars are basically what's supporting that levy. So there's no way whoever owns a bond will say, hey, because the taxpayers of Ohio said we don't have any more taxes, property taxes, so it's okay, I forgive whatever you owe me. So they still have a right towards our property taxes.
So that would, if they pass that, that would also, we also wouldn't collect on those bond levies as well.
Yeah.
So we'll have, not only will we not have any revenue, but we will have debt that we can't cover.
We have that, yeah.
Oh, sweet.
And when does the bond expire?
2031. So it's like a 6.6 mil levy, which will expire with the bonds.
Can I just make a comment, because we've all been staring at this very scary looking slide for a while now, and it's scary looking because it's scary looking, that I just want to emphasize, Mr. Goddam, you said the emergency levy passed in 2021, and it was a 7-year levy. So you do the math, it expires 2028. And we've kind of long said that one of our financial goals, if at all possible, at the top of the list was make that 7 years worth of money last as long as possible. You know, we've always said that if it lasts 6 years and 11 months, that's a huge failure. And you can see that, thankfully, thank you very much for your hard work, Dr. Kozad, Mr. Goddam, Mr. Lyman before you, that 7 years of money is lasting out and doesn't dip below. You called it a goal. I always think of it as the canary in the coal mine, that yellow line, when,
Yep.
doesn't until what, 2030-ish. So I want to commend you for making that 7 years of money last as long as possible, and that we're still on track for that. So.
Thank you. And it's a forecast. Things will happen from between now and 2030. Hopefully better, for the better, not for the worse. So hopefully when we look at 2030 in a few years, it will be over the canary line and the black one or blue one.
And so one of the things that we need to keep in mind as we go towards that is it's that over and under every year, whether we're spending more than we're bringing in, and you're getting into the cash reserve. So if we can do a little bit over time, that's much better than a huge, reduction in services at a later point in time. So that's the other piece here. Either you got to increase revenue or decrease expenditures as we're looking at this. So it's just something to keep in mind as we try to plan long term and make smart decisions long term. But looking at this, that's why it's good to look long term. 2030 seems like a long way away, but it's going to come here real fast. And so just keeping those long-term pieces in mind as we make decisions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Stand by, because we still have to call roll on that here in just a second. All right, so tonight's 5-year forecast, thank you very much for the presentation, was moved by Mrs. Dorn, seconded by Mrs. Anderson. Please call the roll on acceptance.
Dr. Pryor,
Yes.
Mrs. Anderson,
Yes.
Mrs. Dawn,
Yes.
Mr. Kinsey,
Yes.
Mr. Price.
Yes.
5 yeses.
Anything else, sir?
No, that's all I have. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Up next, correspondence. Does anybody have anything for the good of the board, especially anything we all might not have seen?
I got quite a bit of correspondence recently. That's actually a rumor I just want to dispel. The rumor going around that the school board, me in particular, was trying to ruin all the fun of the Powder Puff game and not allow the boys to dress as cheerleaders or wear skirts. That's not true at all. I love the Powder Puff game. My son was a cheerleader. My daughter played football yesterday. Her boyfriend was a cheerleader wearing a skirt. We laughed till tears came out of our eyes. So I just don't believe everything you hear that the school board does. And also, I just want to thank all the teachers and staff and volunteers who are in charge of Powder Puff and all the kids who participated. I think it's my favorite event of the school year and just the most fun senior event. and it was just a blast. So anyway, love Powder Puff. Good job, everybody.
Let the minutes reflect. Okay, moving into our good news recognition for tonight. Dr. Kozak.
Yes, so I just want to spend a minute here. It is Principal Appreciation Month. So just recognizing all of our principals. So we have Mr. Hand, Mr. Lyman, Ms. Lasota at the high school, Mr. Klein and Mr. Killen at the middle school, Dr. Monroe and Mr. Ward at BCI, and Mrs. Hebrink and Mrs. Keaton at Stephen Bell. And so just they spend an inordinate amount of time on not only preparing the school year, but during the school year, after school events, making sure things are running smoothly, making sure everybody is safe and sound, making sure some great academic things are going on, making sure some great non-academic but fun things are going on, and making sure that our kids are having a great experience. And so they're very much servant leaders. They put their teachers and staff first. So just want to say thank you to them in behalf on the school board, students, parents, community, myself, the rest of the administration. A big thank you to our principals. They are a huge part of our five-star school, five-star community, and all those groups, plus parents and community. Just want to say thank you to all of them, and good job, and we appreciate you. So thank you.
All right, we will move into tonight's reports to the board. Up first, we'd like to welcome Betsy Gann, our Director of Curriculum and Gifted Services. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. Again, it feels like just yesterday. I was pleased, and I'm pleased again tonight to report great news again. And before I do that, just to thank my colleagues for all their support with it being Principal Appreciation Month. Thank you so much, my great friends and colleagues, all the principals I work with. I appreciate you very, very much. They support me so much, and I hope I can do the same for you. So tonight, and where are all the students? They left. I thought they'd be here for this riveting presentation. So the 2025 district report card is great news. Again, thank you, staff, parents, students, the administration, all of the support team that works with the students and the staff so closely, the board for your support, the bus drivers, I could go on and on. So it's a team effort. It's an honor to be able to present this data, but it's everyone's data, certainly. So the highlights, let me get my notes. Actually, make notes so I wouldn't forget a couple things. So you can read these, but we had, out of all of the tests given, 13 of the 21 different tests, and that's a lot. So kids begin state testing in grade 3, as you know, all through high school. 13 out of 21 tests given had higher passage rates this past year than in the prior year. So it just keeps getting better, which is fantastic news, but sometimes scary because you're like, oh, you know, where can we go from here? But again, it just keeps getting better, including the overall value added, progress measure, performance of special populations, our subgroups, value added, they continue to show growth. And we have 41.9% of our students are scoring at the highest 2 levels. So that's incredible. Almost half the kids are scoring at that 4s and 5s. Just incredible instruction happening in the classroom. So here's the overall report card. That 5-star is the overall rating. And you can see 5-star, 5-star, 5-star. Early literacy, 4 stars. Still extremely strong. We're very proud of that. That is a tough component. There are lots of moving parts there. New curriculum, science of reading, lots of things happening there. but we're really proud of 4 stars. And college, career, workforce, military readiness. This is the first year it was rated. This is a high school only measure. However, it does count on the district report card. This is the year we get to know the ins and outs of that component. And boy, is it complicated. Mr. Han is the expert on this component. We are learning a lot from him. He has dug in and learned quite a bit about it, and I'll tell you just a little bit more about it when I get to the high school. Big factors in the overall report card. We're rated 1 through 5 stars, as you know. The 5 rated components are achievement, so passage rate, progress, value added, or growth, which we find so important here. When you have 41.9% of our students scoring at those top 2 levels, we have a responsibility to move kids forward, not only kids performing at lower levels, but all kids, even the ones in that top 41%, so to speak. So to do well continually in this area is extremely impressive. Gap closing. So we'll talk more about that a little bit later, but closing the gap between all students and kids in groups where maybe that performance is not as strong. Early literacy. I hit on that on the last slide. And the graduation component is another area that we're rated on, but it's traditionally not a big concern here. We're very fortunate. K through 12 does a great job, and the high school certainly graduates a extremely high number of students. And again, that new component, college, career, workforce, military readiness component, it's the first year being rated and already improving for next year. We've already got a handle on what that will be. District Performance Index is more complicated. All these graphs and indices. And I'll just kind of point out this performance index number at the bottom, that 103.0.23. That's up from last year, so that's one thing I kind of like to look at first when this comes out. Where are we compared to last year? Is that continuing to go up? And what happens here is they take all the tests that have been given or taken by all the students, and where did those students score? Put them all in this graph. So students scoring 3s, 4s, 5s, and then we even get extra credit, so to speak, for kids that are accelerated. So they give us this advanced plus rating, and then put point values on that, and those are multipliers that give us these performance index points. So that number has gone up since last year. So that came out to that 5 stars. So this is a little more detail on that. And you can see that yellow and green, just how big those sections are of that pie. Those are kids scoring at the top levels. That green section is that very top level, the kids that are accelerated at that top level of performance, getting that extra boost. There were 257 student tests in that category. So that helps that performance index quite a bit, but so does the yellow and so does the red. You get extra credit or weighted points for those areas. So digging into the building level a little bit, we have Stephen Bell. I'm showing you the whole report card, but on the next slide, you'll see Stephen Bell doesn't have state testing. I'm sure they're really broken up about that. But they are rated. They're rated on gap closing, and that metric has changed a little bit. But they earned their 5 stars, and we look at specifics in terms of gifted services, identification, and performance of English language learners on a specific test that they take. So yes, it's a state test, but it's not a traditional state test. It's on language acquisition. So congratulations to Stephen Bell. The other component, the third component they are rated on is chronic absenteeism, which is very, very low. So congratulations to them. And then we move to Bell Creek. Again, these are all the components of the report card, but the ones they are rated on include that traditional state testing, achievement, and now value added or growth. Gap closing gets a little more expansive because now we have state testing and we have subgroups, economically disadvantaged, minority groups, students with disabilities, all kinds of different subgroups there. And then early literacy shows up there. Now, early literacy is K through 3, but early literacy did not count for Stephen Bell last year because they had less than 10 kindergartners who qualified for a reading improvement and monitoring program, a RIMP, Reading Improvement Monitoring Plan. So because that number was so low, they were not counted on that particular indicator. So that did show up there for Bell Creek, so that covered their grade 3 at Bell Creek. However, for the district, we are rated in early literacy. So congratulations to Bell Creek, a great showing there. Pointing the wrong direction. Moving on to the middle school. These are the areas they are rated on. I'm wanting to point at the screen. Achievement, so overall passage rate, progress or value added, and gap closing. So straight five stars across the board. Excellent job. Not much more to say there. Congratulations to staff and students. And then moving on to the high school, they get a little bit of everything except early literacy. So achievement, great job. Progress, 3 stars there in growth. So we're digging into that data. Dave, Mr. Hand has already started looking at some longitudinal data. We've talked about that. 3 stars is not bad. I know it sometimes jumps out at us, but that means you've met expectations. So there's adequate evidence to show that students are making growth. So in other words, they're learning about a year's worth of content in a year's time. They're not going backwards. They are meeting the expectation for growth. So if you think of that sort of like a sports analogy, they're kind of maintaining their position or their seed if they're a swimmer or a runner. They're maintaining that position. Gap closing, 4 stars, and graduation rate is strong. And the college and career readiness, I've already mentioned, this is the first year for that measure. And we do have a beef, really, with the metric. It is very complicated. It's very disconnected from graduation seals. It's a metric that is very complicated. And I'll give you one example. The military readiness, for example, you can participate as a student successfully in JROTC for 4 years and not be considered military ready and not get credit toward this particular metric. The only thing that counts is if the student enlists, and that's not just the signing, the initial enlistment, but that actual follow-up that they went through. I believe it's called, is it MEPS or some kind of an acronym like that? And we would have to have follow-up and make sure that that happened. So you can imagine, you know, the human manpower, woman power behind follow-up on this metric. Other examples include particular scores on your ACT and things like that that are different for this metric than what we would consider college ready. So we can provide more information on that in the future, but we already have confirmed with current data that for this coming year, the most recent grads, we should be at 4 stars for that. So now we're kind of learning how to track things and how to get our hands on information. So growth. I mentioned earlier, we really keep our eye on this, moving all kids forward. And I've talked about this in years past with every presentation. We know that students, all students can make growth regardless of whether they pass the test or not. So we really aim for that quartile in the, the quartile upper right, that students have high growth and high proficiency. So we want all students to master the standards that are being taught and move forward and grow. So that is the goal. But we also know that some students may not be at that minimum bar yet, but they can still move forward. And we have made a lot of forward movement in that area too, and we track that very closely. This is a chart here showing similar districts, and I know a lot of times we'll compare ourselves to other high-performing districts in the area. ODEW compares us to similar typography, so they have other factors, and they look at districts across the state. So these are the districts that we are compared to. We're similar to these other districts here on this chart, and you have a copy of that. So locally, I think Springboro and Beaver Creek, Kings Local is relatively close, but we have districts that are further away. Last year, this same chart was up there, and there were 5 school districts that earned 5 stars straight across here, like us. You can see in the progress or the growth component, we earned 5, overall value added, gifted value added 5 stars. Only 4 this year have 5 all the way across. So I look back at last year's presentation, there were 5 in our similar district group with the same data that we were showing, only 4 this year. So things have gotten a little tougher there for higher performing districts, I think, in general. So we're proud to maintain there against the similar districts. So gap closing, I'm just showing this graphic to demonstrate how we think about gap closing. This is not any particular data. It just shows you how we look at gap closing. If you think about that dark blue line as all students and their performance, for example, in math and reading, and then maybe we look at a subgroup that's red, maybe that's, and I'll just pick one, maybe it's English language learners, or it's economically disadvantaged students, and the yellow might be students with disabilities. What we're doing this year is looking closely at, and this is not any particular group data, I just want to show you a graphic on gap closing. We're looking at the difference between all students and our students with disabilities, and we're specifically looking at reducing the gap between that passage rate of students with disabilities versus all students, trying to close that gap. So we want that difference to be smaller. And in fact, today we had a district implementation team meeting, and we were working out some action steps for teachers to have opportunities to really look at their own classroom assessments and tease that data out. So not only looking at our state level assessment data and tracking that, but now let's look at our classroom assessment data. What can we glean from that? What can we do differently in terms of instruction, accommodations, and supports for students to help with that?
Betsy, I have a question there. So
Sure.
That's how the state calculates gap closing.
Yeah.
So to me, if you're going to close that gap, you can do it by raising the performance of, say, the students with disabilities.
Correct.
or by lowering the performance of your overall student population.
That's one
And
way
I'm
to
not-
think
I'm
of
not
it, but
advocating
that's,
for
yeah,
that.
that's,
But what I'm saying is if you have an overall student population that's really strong,
right.
does that hurt you in gap closing? I mean, in the sense that you've got a bigger gap, or you just have a bigger gap, and if you close it this amount, that's the same as closing it? Like, do you know what I'm trying to get at?
yeah, I
Like,
think
is it
so.
harder, is gap closing harder because our overall student population is so strong?
I thought the gap closing was more against a particular number and not, like there's numbers that are set by either state or the federal government that you have to be at a certain percent, and we're trying to close that gap of getting closer and closer to that number.
To a bogey.
80% or 70% or so forth, and closing that gap.
There are goals, like our district goal over 3 years is to improve that percentage of kids passing in that subgroup and reduce the gap by 25%.
To get them to proficient.
Yes,
Okay.
yes, and to reduce the gap by 25% because it's gap closing that's being measured. But yeah, what you say is true, absolutely. But there is a federal goal. We meet the federal goal every year though because the goal is really low. So, but our gap, in our opinion, is still too wide. I mean, for some areas, the goal for students with disabilities is 58%. That is not enough kids passing if they're
58% of those students are proficient?
right, right. So we want that to be closer to our norm locally. So that's why, I mean, we got 5 stars in gap closing, but when we look at the gaps, we still want to bring them up. So,
Thank you.
and I'm happy to get into more details on that
No, I was just
with a
trying to-
report,
trying
even
to make sense
providing
in
that.
my head. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, and again, for each one of these areas, there's probably a 20-page
Yeah.
document, a technical document that explains how everything is calculated and put together. And those things usually come out in the middle of the year or late in the year for this year. So you don't technically know what
So
you're
we
getting
don't
graded
have
for
all
this
of
year
our,
until,
we just got our grade, we didn't get our test back yet. Is that what you're
no,
saying?
no, I'm saying, like there's a technical document that explains how gap closing it works, like
Okay.
the mechanics and whatever. So that document for the next year's
Oh,
report
for
card.
next year's,
that
like
is
how
based
we're
on
gonna
this
be,
year's
the
scores
rubric
is
for
not
next
out
year.
yet.
Okay, yeah.
I mean, I think for the most part, things are gonna be about the same, but there's always some little nuances
tweak it.
and so forth. So.
And they were moving that target up every year, and then the feds decide to freeze it for a while, and it's
So perhaps we might see changes to the
maybe.
one that we don't love.
No.
The
not-
readiness,
Not in the
I
near
think
future
that
unless
one's gonna stay.
legislation, well,
Uh.
the legislators change that,
Okay,
and they're concerned about property taxes right now.
okay.
And I can't remember if it was you or Mrs. Pritchard that was talking to us about how we were getting dinged for identification of special ed, and so that we just have to be okay with some, gap, because we are going to do what's right for kids, no matter what. So I don't know if it was you that said that, or she said that. I think it was Mrs. Pritchard.
I think it's Mrs.
That said
Pritchard, and
that-
that's another report. It's not the report card, it's like the special ed report card.
Right,
Yes.
but it would still
Indicators.
affect our gap, yeah, right.
Disproportionality, yeah.
I think it related to this last year, because last year we were 4 stars in graduation
Right,
rate, and it was based on
Right.
us allowing some kids with disabilities to remain on
Stay
the
on.
books
Right.
until they're,
They have the right to
Oh.
remain until 22.
yeah, until they're
Right.
22, and so they don't count as graduated, but
Correct.
we're
Right.
doing what's right for
And
We're
that's
doing
still
what's right for
tax
kids.
or graduation.
So that to say
correct.
that as long as we're doing what's right for kids,
Yeah.
I'm good with that.
Yeah.
We're good.
That's a great segue for something that's coming up soon. Let's see. So, little more detail here with gap closing, but not to that level. And I like where you're going because I love looking at all those numbers, but I don't have all those tonight. But when you were talking about like doing what's right for kids, this is the gifted performance indicator is part of gap closing. And we're doing great there with the academic part of this indicator. The progress, value-added growth for gifted, strong, 5 out of 5 points. Performance index, they're scoring high on the test, 5 out of 5. The identification and services, however, we're earning 0 out of 5, which is really shocking to staff members and all of us because we do have so many services here compared to most districts, especially starting in 2nd grade. Here's what's hurting in a nutshell, and we're working on this, is reporting. When students are identified, it's in the system and has to be reported with the date of identification. If they're not receiving a service right then, it counts against us, and there's a gap, and they actually have a chart in the details showing you have X number of students identified as of January 2025, but you're serving this many. As the year goes on, that gap gets bigger because we're identifying kids. MAP is an improved assessment. We give it 3 times a year. We can't keep changing kids' schedule every time they take a MAP so that they get a service. You can't do that. It's not right for kids. They're growing, they're showing growth, but we need time to plan for their service for the next year. So we've got a couple things in mind with 1st grade testing for our cognitive abilities testing. We can do something a little bit different with the date that will help. If they would just allow us to report or not hold that against us until the next year. If we've sat on that data and not done anything, it's fair game. But that is the problem there. And so it's just something that this has looked this way now for a few years. That target keeps changing each year also. They keep expecting a higher percentage of those kids to be served every year. Okay, where do we go from here? We don't rest on our laurels. We're continuing to improve and work on things, continuing to use MAP, measuring that growth over time, looking closely at student growth every time it's given, reflecting on that at the end of the year, using short cycle checks for student mastery. Many of our teachers, all of them are using what we call checkpoints and benchmarks to check for mastery, using state tested or state test questions that have been used before, continued support for the new language arts curriculum, taking that a little deeper this year and next, and then building in collaboration time on staff development days. And increased investment in evidence-based intervention. So we're getting really good at this, making sure that whatever interventions we're using has solid research behind it. Is this going to work? If so, what's the research behind it? How many minutes a week should we be using it? Let's use it that way and not just use it as a menu, pick and choose. And we're using more coaching with ELA, peer-to-peer, and the gap closing goals I mentioned. And I already mentioned looking more closely at the testing logistics so that we can impact that reporting, not changing what we're doing for kids, but can we do something a little bit different with the testing protocols so that we can report a little bit different. And I always like to end with this so that we know lots of data, and the report card's very important. We're proud of that. But not everything that counts gets counted, and not everything that's counted counts. So thank you to everyone, to the staff and teachers, administrators. I've already thanked you all at the beginning. So again, I appreciate all of you, including parents. Thanks for listening. Do you have any questions? I appreciate the ones you've asked.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Feel free to email me if you have follow-up on anything. I can send you some fancy reports.
And thank you for your leadership on
you.
everything, Ms. Gann.
Thank you.
And, you know, as you said at the beginning, it's a team effort definitely between everybody, including the staff, teachers, administration, the board, parents, students, the community. The parents send us some really great kids. They send us some great kids. But as you see by our information, we push them and grow them too. And so we just don't rest on our laurels. We push them. And so, you know, kudos to the school district and to everybody working hard as a team effort to keep improving every year. And again, we got areas that we'd like to improve on, and we're going to continue to improve and get even better. So also that, you know, the non-academic pieces in the next bridge, there's our quality profile comes out. That is all there's some academic stuff on there also, but there's non-academics, that really well-rounded education. Kids have a great experience here, and so that really highlights the non-academic things that make us a great place to be also. So that will be in the next bridge that's coming out in the next month or two here.
Thank you very much. All right, thank you, Ms. Gann. We're now going to move into our open communication period, which means your thoughts and comments are welcome during this time. There's been a sign-in sheet. Thing was just handed to me. It's been up near the front door. When you're given the floor, please share your name, your address, and any group affiliation you hold if it's relevant. You'll then have 5 minutes for your comments, which should be directed toward the presiding officer, who tonight happens to be me. This time is for the board to listen and absorb, and as such, traditionally, a dialogue is not created in this moment. In case you're wondering, the reason for these policies, which can be read in their entirety on the district's website in policy number 169.91, is to ensure that as many people as possible have the opportunity to speak and that everyone is treated equally and fairly. So with that, I would like to welcome up Logan Ashley. Thanks so much for being here, sir. You have 5 minutes. You gotta kind of hold it in for a second. There you go.
So good evening, Dr. Kozab, Mr. Kenzie, my colleagues from the school district. Lovely to see everybody. For anyone who doesn't know me, my name is Logan Ashley. I'm a councilman for the city of Bellbrook. I also represent, and I am the chairman of the committee over public safety for the city. I'm here tonight in my official capacity to discuss the city's continued commitment to our community, our future, and more importantly, the safety of our schools and how what we're doing as a city could adversely impact the school district. We all know Bellbrook's a special place. This is a place where neighbors look out for each other, families thrive, and a place where a sense of community is a part of our very foundation. Part of that foundation is often overlooked, and that is our public safety services. Right now, Bellbrook is facing a critical crossroads. Our police, fire, and EMS departments are operating with a funding shortfall of roughly $600,000. That is $600,000 in essential services that our budget simply cannot sustain. At our current pace, we continue to subsidize the public safety fund. We will deplete our general fund in a matter of years. To address this, the city is proposing a $2.2 million public safety levy. This would generate $610,000 annually and would be dedicated solely to police, fire, and EMS. So what does that mean for our residents? For the average homeowner who owns a home for $100,000, that's $77 a year, or $77 per appraised value. Breaking down monthly, it's $6.14 a month. So for the price of a latte, we can continue to sustain our police and fire services. And this kind of goes into what we talked about earlier with budget, actually. To be clear, we do not have an income tax. We do not tax our businesses, and we do not tax our residents on the income that they bring in. Our sole form of revenue from taxes is property tax. To break that down, because people will say, I give so much money in property tax, which we do. We have a higher property tax, but to break that down, for every dollar, 56% of that goes to the school district, 16% of that goes to the county, 5% goes to the career center, 3% goes to the parks district. The city of Bellbrook operates on 19 cents per dollar. Police, fire, medics, roads, everything, 19 cents per dollar. Now, if our levy passes, we will maintain our current staffing levels, preserve our excellent response times, and continue offering the community programs that make Bellbrook feel safe, and supported. The funds from this levy will go into a restricted public safety fund, ensuring that every dollar brought in goes exactly as where we promised. However, if this levy fails, the consequences are going to be real. They're not only going to impact the city, they will impact the school district and Sugar Creek residents. Our city will face $600,000 in cuts. To translate that, we will have to terminate 2 firefighter paramedics and 3 police officers. This means longer response times and fewer community programs and reduced police and fire services. It also means the reduction of $125,000 in capital projects, which means less street paving, less maintenance, less infrastructure. Everything will be reduced. Now, perhaps one of the most concerning issues that we also talked about this in our joint session a couple months ago will be the loss of the school resource officer at Bell Creek Intermediate School and and Stephen Bell. As a former law enforcement officer, I understand the SRO is more than just a uniform in the hallway. They are a trusted adult who's a mentor, a first line of defense in emergencies. They build relationships with students. They prevent bullying and violence and foster safe, respectful learning environments. Removing the SRO means removing a vital layer of protection, and honestly, it removes support for our children. It means fewer positive interactions between youth and law enforcement. It means asking the school district to do more with less. And honestly, that's a burden we should not bear alone, and you should not bear alone either. The proposed levy that I'm discussing is not about expanding services. It's about preserving what we have, and what we have in Bellbrook is amazing. Our fire department is rated in the top 3 nationwide, not in Ohio, but in the nation. Annually, we certify over 100 people and recertify on CPR. We also conduct car seat installations and safety discussions for new families in our fire department. So if you have a new family, get a car seat, we'll take care of it, we'll install it, we'll inspect it. Also, thanks to the vigilance of our police department, Bellbrook is safer than 82% of the state of Ohio. Also, our city has award-winning financial management and transparency, and we stretch every dollar. As a city, we have not raised taxes since 2009. We have held our water rates steady since 2011. We've even lowered waste collection rates. Now, we are asking for the support of our community. The levy is not just a financial decision, it's a statement about what we value in our community.
Yeah. Sorry, sir, if you could wrap up.
I'm last sign. It's about supporting our first responders. Honestly, it's about supporting our schools. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. All right, up next, we'd like to welcome Ridge Mulford. Thanks so much for being here, and you have 5 minutes.
Okay, thank you. This is my first time ever at a school board meeting, honestly, and speaking at one, obviously, so I'm glad to be here. My name's Dr. Ridge Mulford. I am an associate professor of mechanical engineering at the University of Dayton. More importantly, I am a parent. I live here in Bellbrook on Lakeman Drive, and we moved here in 2020, and I really do love this place. We're glad to be here. It was the schools that brought us here, actually. I think a lot of people would agree with that sentiment. Before I go anywhere else, let me just say that my kids love the school resource officer. My daughter my daughter says, that's my police officer. So I guess just amen to what you just said. I'm here because I wanted to talk about the Parents' Bill of Rights. I believe this was policy 5780. I'm just becoming aware of this myself, that's why I'm here now. This is the policy regarding sexual content and gender ideology in lessons and books. So I was inspired by our poster that we actually have up there about the Golden Eagles. And so I wanted to just kind of state those 3 things and kind of how I perceive them related to this policy. Number 1, do the right thing. I wanted to say congratulations to the board and to the school administrators and especially to the teachers and staff for 5 stars. I was thrilled when I saw that, and I'm really glad to be a part of this community for that reason. I know that we're all helping, but really the teachers and staff, right, we can thank them for what they're doing. And I trust our teachers to know what they're doing. I'm friends with some of them. I like talking to them. And I trust them, kind of like it says on Do the Right Thing, we have to have trust in each other when it comes to what books it is that they think fit best into their classroom. my question about the policy is, how does this policy move us towards increased academic excellence and fiscal responsibility? Which seems to be what we're here for, to talk about at school board meetings. It's my understanding that many of the teachers disagree with this policy, and many have pulled their books actually out so the students can't access them. So I'm worried about that. I'm wondering how limiting book access is going to set us apart from other districts. I'm wondering how not allowing kids to access some books is going to help them exceed and excel academically. I mean, that is why people move here, for the schools, for me anyway. So it's a concern I have about just losing community and access to people who want to move here. Number 2, pursue excellence. I understand that this policy is in response to House Bill 8, and that we've taken that bill and kind of expanded how we're implementing it. And I understand that. I understand kindergarten through 3rd and not talking about sexual content there. I appreciate that as a parent. I just wonder, though, about 18-year-olds, high school. If you go and look at any kid's TikTok or the YouTube they're watching, they're seeing a lot of crazy stuff that I don't think is good. But our kids are seeing this content now. What do books give us? Books give us context. So in high school, I read Brave New World, and in high school, I read 1984. And those books give context to human sexuality, right? They show us that sex can be used to control, and all these things. So I think it's important that we make sure we have access to these important pieces of literature that kids can read to help them learn about this part of their lives. Last, and I think most important to me, is Soar Together. It says, we serve and empower others, and we respect our differences. So transgender people do exist, and to hide the literature about them is to not respect our differences. I'm friends with multiple transgender people, and I'm glad they're in my life. I think it's okay if they are visible. I think it's okay if we can read a book about them. Heck, if we can just read a book that uses they, them, without even identifying that person as transgender. It's my understanding those are being pulled off the shelves. So to hide these people is to not serve and empower others. So I guess my recommendation would be, could we follow the state law minimum as expressed in House Bill 8? Thank you for your time. I really appreciate your listening and being here in your service.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your comments. Up next, we'd like to welcome Greta Shoemaker. I'm so sorry. Is it Schumacher? Shoemaker? I should know this. Schumacher. I will remember.
You want to take it very seriously.
No.
Schumacher.
Schumacher. Thanks for being here. You have 5 minutes.
All right. Thank you so much. Hello, everyone. My name is Greta Schumacher, or Greta Schumacher, however you want to pronounce it. Today I'm here because I actually had a very similar idea to the gentleman before me about the rules that we were looking at. Like, better tomorrow than today, right? And that's the big motto here, and that should be the motto for anyone. And just seeing everything around me that's happening right now, where people are very much not kind, don't show compassion, calling out names, calling minority groups, whatever they want. It just, I see a lot of unkind people in the world right now, and it's actually shocking me. And I'm happy to know that Bellbrook is not part of that, at least yet, and hopefully won't get to there. And therefore, I'm thinking, how can we make tomorrow better than today? Part of it is in books. We can read about the different people that are in the life, that are in the world, that are around us. We can read about minority groups. We can understand their different life, their different things, and not be afraid of what that is. And you can only not be afraid if you're confronted with something. For example, when I first came here, there were a lot of things where I'm like, what are they doing, you know? But you just have to think, okay, hold on, I'm not going to judge. It's not good, it's not bad, it's just different. And I would love for everyone to embrace differences and to see that we can be stronger together, that we can pursue excellence and soar together, just like the Golden Eagle rules say. Also, with that is, the one thing when we moved here was my daughter had already picked out her middle school classes in Maryland, where we used to live, and she really wanted to learn a foreign language. And we moved here just to learn. You can learn a foreign language, but not till high school. And I was wondering if to be better, to even earn the 5 stars and continue to do so, because we are an excellent school, can we bring language into the school earlier, in middle school? Because we all know the older we get, the less we remember, the harder it is to retain something, and it is easier for kids to learn a language at a younger age. And I would love to see at least a discussion about, can we hire some teachers who would be willing to teach at BMS any language? I mean, I would take, heck, it can be German, right? But anything, you know, Spanish, of course, is always a favorite. French there seems to be a lot of German in this area too, so that might be a good way of doing that. And that might also be a way of maybe getting kids and people in who opted to send to private school. Because I think if you live in a district like ours, why do you even want to go to a private school? We have 5 stars. What more can you want, right? So I think with that, if we can keep funding the funding up, if we can have the 5 stars as it is, maybe we should consider bringing in language a little earlier. I know Alter has language starting in 6th grade, so why can't Bellbrook do that? That might be one thing to really consider for the future. And with learning a new language brings in, you know, you're vulnerable. If you speak a foreign language, you make mistakes, you sound different, and because of that, it helps you understand to take a step back and be like, oh, okay, maybe I understand the people that come here and don't speak English like I did. Well, not me per se, but like most people did when they were born here and grew up with this. So it's a way of understanding others, of showing kindness and compassion, of learning about different cultures, and that can all help us be better tomorrow than today. Thank you for your time and for your consideration.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Up next, we'd like to welcome Meredith Brenniger. Thank you for being here. You have 5 minutes.
Great. My name is Meredith Brenniger, and I live in Bellbrook. And I know there were some people out there wanting to watch. Is the live video still down? I know it's down. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry, we received word right before. I guess there was an update earlier today. It wasn't able to come up, but it's going to be posted for all to see as soon as possible.
Perfect,
So
perfect,
apologize for the technical glitch.
Okay.
And I just used up like 20 seconds of your time. We're going to make sure you get that.
Okay, thank
So-
you. I might actually be under this time.
Okay,
We'll see.
yeah, appreciate it.
Thank you so much for the opportunity to speak. And tonight, during Banned Books Week, I'm here speaking on behalf of nearly 250 Bellbrook residents, alumni, and students. And I will give you, after I speak, I will give you a paper copy of a letter signed by myself and 248 concerned citizens. I won't read the entire letter. We essentially urge the board to revise policy 5780 to the language outlined in the Ohio Revised Code. Nothing less and nothing more. This is what all other school districts in Ohio have done. We feel this will eliminate, or at least greatly reduce, the burden that has been placed on our teachers and librarians and will restore the right to read to students. Parents will continue to have the ability to opt out, just like they have always had. Now, the implementation of this policy seems to have partially closed our high school library again. Now, please correct me if I'm wrong, but my understanding is that students are not allowed to go to the library during their study hall time if it is being used by ELA students who do not have permission to participate in class book discussions. I think students are still allowed to check out books and use the printer if done quietly. They just can't stay there for extended periods of time I know that many students love going to the library, especially like on block days when they might have a study hall for 2 hours instead of 1 hour. And it just feels like this is another unforeseen negative consequence of this policy. So to summarize, the signers of this letter, 249 and counting, Bellbrook-Sugarcreek citizens, alumni, current students, and relevant organizations urge you to stick to the state law. I'm not sure how many signatures would suffice to get your attention. I gather these in just about a week through word of mouth. I could keep gathering if you thought it would make a difference. If I made it broadly public online, I suspect I could get more. Now, the final portion of what I plan to share tonight represents just me. When I was denied the chance to speak at the last board meeting, I followed up with an email to the superintendent and board. I asked where the books from grades K to 8 that had violated policy 5780 were currently located. Dr. Kozad did not reply at all. Mr. Kinsey replied but did not answer my question. Ms. Anderson said that to the best of her knowledge, no books were removed from Stephen Bell or BCI, and that books from the middle school are being relocated to the high school. Dr. Pryor said that she thought that the middle school books were moved to the high school already and that she hoped that there weren't any that violated the policy from Stephen Bell. She didn't say anything about BCI. Mr. Price and Ms. Dorn did not reply at all. Is this something I will have to submit like a formal records request to get? I mean, I know I would be interested to know which titles in all grades K to 12 were in violation, which library they were pulled from, and where they are physically located at the current time. Not in the future, but at present. Now, while some books that were at the middle school might make sense to move to the high school, books from Stephen Bell or BCI would likely be developmentally inappropriate if moved to the high school, and it's also arguably unconstitutional. Now, I doubt there are books with explicit sexual content in Stephen Bell or BCI, even though this has become a scare tactic that we must get rid of the porn in kindergarten and first grade. I don't think it's there. I do think there could be books that contain trans, non-binary, or gender non-conforming characters. I mean, for all the focus on sex at recent meetings, we have forgotten about the so-called gender ideology portion of this policy. I guess the adage that sex sells still holds true. If you're able to share any of this information publicly tonight without having to go through a formal records request, that would be appreciated. I'm going to close by borrowing words from a friend. Students' freedom of speech is being threatened, possibly more than ever before, here in Bellbrook and across the country. It's not about the book content, it's about control. Controlling access to information, controlling the narrative, controlling whose stories get told and whose are buried. Thank you.
Thank
And
you
I
for
will,
coming.
I even have a few minutes, I'll pass out the letter, and I'll send you an email, because like, responses are still coming in. Thank you.
Up next, we'd like to welcome Allison Bizignani. Thanks so much for being here. You have 5 minutes.
Thank you. So I am very grateful that I've had several very respectful conversations with most of you guys on the board. And I hope these continued respectful conversations and exchanges, we can find solutions to best support all of our Bellbrook kids. I do want to start by saying I would support the board at the high school level if they amended policy 5780 to an opt-out model instead of opt-in. So that's just something I wanted to mention before I really went into what I wanted to talk about. So the reason I'm speaking today is because I'd like the board to immediately remove gender ideology from policy 5780. The examples that have been used to support this policy have dealt with sexuality content. Gender ideology is not something someone would be arrested for on a park bench, and implying so, in my opinion, is just very dangerous. The medical community recognizes transgender individuals. It's part of the DSM. Twin studies have found significant and consistent evidence for gender identity being genetically heritable, and it's something that I feel strongly about. In the past, people who were left-handed were forced to write with their right hand because left-handedness was associated with evil and witchcraft. People that are transgender, well-adjusted people that I love, say that pretending to be the gender that matches their sex at birth feels like writing with the wrong hand all their life. I understand that none of you are transgender. However, denying literature to people who want to be understanding of transgender issues compassionate to our transgender neighbors, and even wondering about their own gender is not okay. There are things that you on the board believe that I do not believe, and I would never fight to remove those things from the school library. Removing materials is a dangerous precedent. And it opens the doors to removing books about other things that people don't believe in, such as vaccines, evolution, racism, religion, atheism. And we as a community need to make sure that our kids can see beyond Bellbrook. They need to be able to grow in their global awareness. They need to learn how to be a neighbor to everyone. Just because you do not like or believe in transgender people does not mean our children should not learn about them. It means, in learning about them, it gives them the tools and ability to love all of their neighbors. I think my previous statement is so important, I want to say it again. The examples being used to support policy 5780 deal with sexuality, gender ideology isn't something that we'd be arrested for on a park bench. Please remove gender ideology from the policy immediately and stop putting the gender ideology you guys share on our Bellbrook kids. Thank you very much.
Thank you for coming tonight. All right, that brings me to the end of our list, so I'm now closing our open communication period for tonight. Appreciate all the comments. And we move into superintendent's report.
Okay. All right, superintendent's report, new business, certificated license. We have a consent agenda here, A, B, and C. So A is certificated license, employment, resignation, leave of absence, supplemental duty, pupil activity. And then B is support staff, employment, resignation, leave of absence. And then C is substitute employment. Again, this is consent agenda that would be approved for D, approval of consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Mrs. Dorn, then seconded by Dr. Pryor.
Again, most of these are winter supplementals or supplementals in activities, coaching, and then also a few resignations due to retirement at the end of the school year. So there's a few folks on there, and then obviously, as always, we have a few building that substitute teacher and staff list.
Anybody have any questions? All right, tonight's consent agenda was moved by Mrs. Dorn, seconded by Dr. Pryor. Mr. Godwin, please call the roll.
Mrs. Anderson,
Yes.
Mrs. Dawn,
Yes.
Mr. Kinsey,
Yes.
Mr. Price,
Yes.
Dr. Pryor.
Yes.
5 yeses.
Anything else, sir?
Yes, items for discussion, information, next section, so draft job description revision, so this is a first read. We are just slightly revising our maintenance supervisor job description as we have already posted and it's going to start interviewing for that position, so we first read for this time, and then next meeting would have the final second read and final approval of that maintenance supervisor position. Again, fairly minor things on there, but just to fully match what that job description is, or that job entails.
Thank you. Anything else?
Nope.
All right.
I have one more thing.
Okay.
Is it time for
No,
that?
we gotta,
Okay.
or, we don't have
We
to
have-
vote on that, do we?
Did we
No,
vote
that
on
is
it?
the first
Okay.
read.
First
Okay.
read
It'll
of
come
the-
back
Sorry,
second.
I didn't mean to interrupt
That's
you.
all
No, that's all right. I have one more thing, since people are still, so concerned about banned books and limiting access to information. I want to reiterate that we have not removed any books from the high school, to my knowledge. They're all there. All we are doing is allowing parents to decide what kind of sexuality content they want their minor children to access. And so any parent who wants their kids to have it all can, and parents who don't have to. That's at the high school level. We cannot remove gender ideology, that's in the law. The state of Ohio said sexuality content includes gender ideology. We didn't make that up. That is in the law. But also, we can't fit every book in the whole world in the library. Our librarian has to pick and choose what she thinks is appropriate, and she makes choices, and there are books I wish were in the library that aren't. And in fact, in February, I donated this book to the high school library, Riley Gaines' Swimming Against the Current. I think it's fabulous, It is an autobiography of University of Kentucky swimmer Riley Gaines, who had to swim against male swimmer Leah Thomas and change in the dressing room with him. And this is her story. I think it's an excellent story. Why did I donate it to the library? Well, because we have dozens of books in the library that present gender transitioning in a positive way. We have 0 books in our library that mention any downsides of gender transitioning, like the health problems that can occur from taking cross-sex hormones and the unfairness of males competing in women's sports. So we have no books that present that. So I donated this. Now our librarian read it, determined it not to be appropriate for the high school, and did not put it in the high school. So I know you're all very concerned about limiting access to information and banned books, so I highly recommend reading this one. It's excellent, and maybe you can figure out why it's inappropriate for the high school. And I just think it's very empowering for our female athletes. One reason I donated it is because my daughter's friend was doing a big year-long project last year at school, and she went to the library, and she's a female athlete wrestler. So, you know, she had to fight some boys. So anyway, she wanted to do a project on this. There was nothing in the library, and I said, okay, I have some good stuff for you. So that's why I donated it. So anyway, if you would like to read a book that, you know, was rejected from the library, this is a great one.
And that was like officially rejected? You received some notice that that book was deemed unacceptable
Yes.
by our current process and by our current librarian?
Yes.
Okay.
So, you know, I don't personally consider just not picking a book for the library banning it, but most of you do, so anyway. So, that's all.
Okay. At this time, I am going to make a motion that we move to executive session to discuss for the purpose of considering the employment and compensation of a public employee per RC 121.22G1. Does my motion have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mrs. Dorn. We do not anticipate making any action whatsoever, any decision afterwards. Of course, you're welcome to stick around if you like. If not, we understand and hope you all have a good night. So with that, please call the roll.
Mrs. Dawn,
Yes.
Mr. Kinsey,
Yes.
Mr. Price,
Yes.
Dr. Pryor,
Yes.
Mrs. Anderson.
Yes.
5 yeses.
All right, we're now in executive session at 8:32 p.m. We'll come out afterwards and adjourn. Thanks, everybody. We are out of executive session at 10:53 PM. I am making a motion to adjourn. Does my motion have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mrs. Anderson. I will now call the roll. Mr. Price?
Yes.
Mrs. Anderson?
Yes.
Mr. Kinsey's a yes. Dr. Pryor?
Yes.
Mrs. Dorn?
Yes.
All right, we are adjourned at 10:53 PM. Thank you, everybody.